Welcome back to Truck and Talk. I'm Stephanie Valle, and today we're joined by Courtney George, the Director of Transportation and Industry Relations at Wreaths Across America. Courtney brings nearly 2 decades of experience in the transportation industry and now works closely with trucking companies across the country to help move one of the most meaningful missions we have, honoring our nation's veterans. Courtney, thank you for joining us.
So great to be here and talk with MVT today.
And before we move into the full conversation that we're going to have, first, Courtney, I want to begin with Fuel for Thought. Fuel for Thought is a short segment where we step back and look at a topic impacting the trucking industry and the mission behind the work, something that remains relevant beyond today's headlines. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
So, first, drivers and carriers today are looking for more than pay. From what you see now, how does hauling a Wreaths Across America load change the mindset of a driver or fleet compared to a normal commercial run?
Oh, that's a loaded question. It's very different for them. It's just like hauling your regular load, but it's a load that means more. And it means substantially more, not just to your driver. And most likely, I'm going to make the assumption that the driver that picked up the load is a veteran. So it's their way of continuing to serve. But as your driver is going along the route and making additional stops, in completing their mission, your driver gets to feel a sense of gratitude that they frankly don't get to feel when they are delivering to your everyday shipper or receiver. They get treated with the dignity and respect that they deserve. And so for me, that's what sets Wreaths Across America apart is how a driver is treated, how we make their experience so special and most important, meaningful for them.
And December is peak season for retail and for Wreaths Across America. What is the hardest trade off carriers face when deciding to support the mission during that window?
I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? To your point, it's peak for retail. For us, you know, we're a nonprofit and they're making a conscious decision, especially if you're a publicly traded company up against fourth quarter earnings, to continue to support us and continue to support the mission in something that is so important and frankly ingrained in so many companies, their participation. That's really the biggest thing that I find that we run into is, them wanting to continue to support us, but the difference between profit margins makes a difference.
Worse. And for listeners who may be hearing about Wreaths Across America for the first time, how do you explain what the organization does and why this mission exists?
So the mission exists because we have our core three principles about us: to remember the fallen, honor those who serve, and to teach the next generation about freedom. Um, Ronald Reagan famously said, you know, freedom is only one generation away from extinction. And that is something that every day I think all of us need to be reminded about. Our country right now is very polarized, and it would be great to see us come together and celebrate and do what we do best, which is be this amazing country and, to support everyone.
And you spent years recruiting drivers and working with carriers. What did that experience teach you about what truly motivates drivers and fleets?
I will tell you that it taught me everything, and it taught me what I needed to do to be successful at my job, as what is the motivating factor. And that is different for whether it's a carrier, whether it's a driver. That's different for every single person. And so how can I make their experience the absolute best while still, completing the mission and making it happen?
You helped launch a national day of service connected to Wreaths Across America while at SEA. And was that the moment that you realized your career was moving toward mission driven work?
I would say yes. Very truly. I got some of the most amazing experience that you could ever ask for working for a company like Saya. And so for them, the experiences that I received and were able, and I'll call it the, change management that I was able to bring to the table and participate in. I knew that at the end of the day that I had a higher calling. And I was so lucky to find a job with, that takes the two passions that I love, which are trucking and drivers and then veterans, and basically marry those two together. And that for me is what I think makes such a impactful or a difference. I knew that at the end of the day, every day I wanted to make a difference in someone's life. And this has given me the opportunity to fulfill that.
Tell me a little bit about your personal connection with veterans and why that is your passion.
You don't have to dig very deep into someone's family to find a veteran. Both my grandfathers served. My brother-in-law is active in the military with the National Guard and works full time for the National Guard. So I didn't have to look anywhere. And I looked at my sister and watched my brother-in-law be deployed, and watched my niece not know who he was when he came home because she only recognized him on a FaceTime video. It gave me more of a spark, more of a fight to be able to get out there and go, what can I help do better?
It's amazing that you were able to bring those two passions together. So, when you talk to carriers and drivers today about hauling wreaths, how is that conversation different from recruiting them for freight?
Um, so it's not that it's really all that different. I'm going to be honest, right? Understanding their running area, where their running lanes are, what their freight traditionally exists of. Because you need to know that to be a good recruiter. If you don't know the freight that you're selling, then your turnover is going to be atrocious at very best. And so I say that, but understanding what it is that somebody's looking for, and they may come right out there and tell you, or I may be 5 minutes into the conversation. And I think that's what makes a difference. In driver recruiting, you're not trying to spend that long on a phone call. If I spent 5 minutes on a phone call, you better be showing up for orientation, right? Because I've told you everything that I have to offer. And so from a trucking company perspective, we may need to dig a little bit into this, or I may not have the right person in the organization, but through conversations, learn who that person is. So the sales cycle is definitely a lot longer, but it's that much more rewarding when somebody signs on.
And moving from corporate logistics to a Maine based nonprofit, what was the biggest personal adjustment for you?
Leaving a super corporate environment and coming to a, family owned nonprofit is just, it's very different. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. Both had their great options, and positive aspects of life. I will say I was able to gain, most importantly to me, a quality of life that I didn't have because I was traveling 49 out of 52 weeks. And so, it's definitely different. I have less red tape that I have to walk through to get something done or if I want to make a change, which is excellent. But at the same point in time, I'm always super conscious of budgets and things like that. And so working in a nonprofit is also, an opportunity to make sure that you're always producing your best. Um, and that's definitely different. Like you want to produce that when you're in a corporate environment, but when you're in a nonprofit, you really want to make sure that to me, I feel like as a steward, and an employee of theirs, like, I want them to feel like they got their money's worth out of me for the day.
Wreaths Across America is not just a ceremony. So, can you walk us through the journey of a wreath from Maine to a cemetery across the country?
Absolutely. So what you'll see, first off, a lot of people don't know, there's a lot of science between behind the balsam scene. So they start tipping, which is a different word than most people hear. So we don't cut down trees. We bring them in, and we tip 3 years worth of growth. And then they will be fertilized and then reused 3 years later. So that is one thing, but they start tipping in October. Normally about the middle of October, we typically want to see a hard freeze happen prior to us tipping because that ensures the freshness of the wreaths. Um, and so we will start manufacturing in October. And most of the time, what people don't see is they see when wreaths are getting delivered in December. There's a whole life cycle to them being created and made and stored in a condition that'll make them stay super fresh. Um, that's one thing people don't see, but also, they don't see us hauling and putting wreaths on tractors that are going intermodally to the West Coast. The ones that are leaving for Guam and Puerto Rico or, Hawaii when they have to leave earlier, Alaska, right? So there are all those things that people don't see that are behind the scenes that because they're not the easiest solutions require a lot more work. So you'll see things like that start happening. Seeing them get out to the West Coast is definitely, it's a good feeling for me. And then I'm like, oh my word, they're in Arizona, they're in Phoenix. So I'm trying to get them moved quickly so we can make sure that they stay as fresh as possible. We have an outstanding network of companies that we work with that provide dock, storage and dock usage. I think both of the loads y'all picked up this year, we were glad to see y'all go from 1 to 2 this year, picked up at a cross dock. And so that's something that as we continue to grow and see, we make changes to make sure that it fits best for the company and their needs. I also love to see those wreaths and the drivers and their pictures. That's what always gets me is them taking pictures at every single location. If they got a motorcycle escort in, something like that, and to see the pride that they had because they were celebrated for being a hero that they actually are. That's one thing that I find that drivers get overlooked regularly is for that. So, watching them post their pictures, watching them feel it's an immense sense of pride. Like they are treated like they should be in a shipper or receiver. And so to watch that and to see that, makes all the hard work in the middle worth it.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about what you said earlier that you're taking wreaths to Guam, which I had not even considered because I know we have a Fort Bliss cemetery, Council Cemetery here. And so to think that they're coming from Maine here, but yet they're going all over the place, including overseas. That's amazing.
We are hoping we have taken them in the past to Normandy, to Belgium, to Luxembourg, and our hope is that we will be back there. We had to pull it back because of COVID, but our hope and our goal and our founder's goal is to ensure that every American every veteran, regardless of whether you were in this country or not interred, that you have a wreath for your, for your headstone. And so that gives them, it gives us a great goal to constantly climb for as an organization. A lot of people say when a person dies, they die twice. Once when their name is said or once when they take their last breath. and the second time when their name is said last. And so that's for us as an organization why we push for, people to say their names as they're placing that wreath.
It's a beautiful mission, and you are effectively coordinating thousands of loads for Wreaths Across America without, any traditional shipper's budget. What makes that possible?
The generosity of the trucking industry, that's what makes it possible. There are people that care, um, and I need everyone to know that this can't happen without the trucking industry. It would be Rees in Maine. They care, and the highest demographic that you're gonna see historically in the transportation industry is you're going to see someone who was a veteran. So, you mentioned when I worked at Saya, and part of me making this, a day of service was that over 40% of my staff were veterans. So, my boss had gone to me and said, "Hey, we need to make some affinity groups. We need to do some of this." And I said, "Hey, let's sit down. We need to talk because I'm not going to give you the information that you're expecting." And she was like, "What?" And I said, "Well, when I pulled all of our demographics and looked at everything, our number one demographic was a veteran. That's staff in the terminals, that's employees, whether they're working on the dock, whether they're dispatching, whether they're driving. You know, that is why me going to the C-suite and saying, 'Hey, this makes a lot of sense. We should do this,' made it an immediate yes. It took a little bit of work and not that much. And so it's great to talk to people and to find out how they want to get involved and how I can use what we do as a carrier, or I should say, what we do as a company and a nonprofit, and make it work to fit them best. And that's part of the love that I have for this, is making it work. That everything's not just an easy, point and click. Sometimes I got to make it a puzzle. But it always works out, and it works out because there are so many people who are so supportive across this country.
And the escort to Arlington has become iconic. For a driver or fleet that has never experienced it, what makes that convoy different from any other haul?
It is the largest convoy in the US, first off. That makes it very different. What it also does is that there are up to 14 carriers that get to be in that convoy. And you are spending a week along the road making a family. Because these aren't people that you just got to know. These are people that you are now in contact with every day of your life. And a lot of them are Gold Star families. A lot of them, it may be the head of the American Legion. You're getting to, let's say, rub elbows, but you are truly getting to sit out there and to talk to people. And it's not about anything other than the mission. That's what I love, that a truck driver can go sit next to a CEO of a company, or somebody that was a Gold Star family, and here we are. They are getting the best experience of their life.
It sounds very gratifying.
Very much so.
Wreaths Across America loads are heavy and often delivered to small or remote cemeteries. We were talking about that earlier. What is the hardest part of the last mile for carriers?
I would say the hardest part of the last mile, or the final mile, however you wanna refer to it, is just making it happen, right? How are you scheduling this? Especially when you are a driver that is used to full truckload, um, and getting them to be okay with making 8 to 12 stops. That is a hard sell. And it's not that they don't want to, it's that they want to do their absolute best. And so for us, that's part of the hardest stop, the part of the hardest part, I should say. And the other part is that as we approach National Wreaths Across America Day, we are constantly still growing in cemeteries. So I tell people the last 2 weeks, like, hey, keep an eye out on your email. I may be sending you a new load confirmation with an additional stop. Please pay attention. And not everybody does. I get it. People take vacation. That's a very popular time of the year. Um, but that's something that's really important that we want to make sure that, we stress to people is like, I understand that I maybe just added another stop or you're doing something different from what you do 364 days out of the year. But what you're doing matters immensely.
And what they're doing happens in December. So when a truck breaks down or even weather intervenes, how does the Wreaths Across America response differ from a standard commercial load?
So my answer is always going to be on the side of safety. A driver's safety is my number one concern, has been and always will continue to be. So sometimes out of some really difficult situations, maybe the Rees don't get there on time, come some of the best conversations where we're talking about safety and we know that we want to be here, remembering and honoring all of these veterans. And we're going to have our ceremony. And then we're going to ask you to please come back when you can, but we're going to hold it on another date. And, have people come back by, have them make that agreement. And getting that buy in is definitely, as somebody, I'm also a location coordinator, not always the easiest. But a driver's safety is always gonna be our number one concern, and I'm never gonna supersede, um, nor would I ever want to supersede DOT regulations, company regulations. For example, this year, Pennsylvania, shut down to empties coming through, and it was about a 36-hour shutdown, and so that definitely threw off our loading appointments and schedule, but at the same time, their safety is my number one concern.
Many drivers describe a Wreaths Across America load as the most emotional haul of their career. I can imagine the answer to this, but explain, why does this freight hit differently?
Because they form relationships. A lot of people don't look at trucking in the way it should be looked at, as a people business. Trucking is a people business, and they form relationships with these people, and they learn, whether it's the people that are unloading their truck or whether it's the people that they are delivering to, they learn why they are delivering this, what makes this or sets this apart. And so, when you are going to drop off wreaths at a national cemetery and you may have a Gold Star mother or father and they tell you to come and place a wreath on their child's headstone, um, there's no way that that can evoke some emotion for you. Um, Same thing when your driver is looking at it. And like I said, most of the drivers that do this are veterans. So they'll talk to you about their battle buddies. They're going to talk to you about who's got your six. And mental health for our drivers is one of the most important things that we can really focus on as an industry and as a company. And so for drivers that participate, sometimes they're releasing pain they didn't know that they had built up. And so it's a great experience for them. It's an experience that has forever changed their lives.
And for veteran drivers and veteran-owned carriers, talk about what it means to personally deliver the wreaths honoring the fallen service members.
I look at this and go, there's so many great stories throughout, the country. There is a company in Iowa, and I asked if their colors were based off of um, Iowa State's colors, and they said, "No, they're the same colors as, the Marines. Our owner was a Marine." And I was like, "Who would have thought?" Or to watch, another carrier, their CEO taking a week off to come up and a whole load of wreaths and put his 5-year-old son in the truck and frankly take him out of school and go, he's learning more doing this than he is sitting in a classroom. And I can't always argue that. Like, I'm always going to be like, hey, kids, go to school. But what your kid learned in that moment is something that I can't teach in a classroom, nor can anyone. So it's something where you look at these industries, you look at these companies, and having so many veterans, this means more to them.
How does Wreaths Across America recognize carriers and drivers who return year after year to support the mission?
Absolutely. So we do normally at the TCA annual convention, we release and give out awards for carriers that have participated 10 years in a row or longer. Um, there are several who have actually done that. We send it out in newsletters. We actually work with their marketing departments. Um, we have our own 24/7 internet radio called Wreaths Radio that you can listen to on iHeart, TuneIn, Odyssey. I know this is going to shock all of the listeners, but we are number one in wreath-related content. Um, I know I would get a little bit of a chuckle, but, we also work with them to, have them on our radio show, right? I think that there's, a lot that is important that a carrier has to say that, frankly, is a better sales pitch than I'm ever going to say.
And dispatchers are trained to protect that on time performance. What is the one mindset shift that dispatchers and fleet managers have to make when handling Wreaths Across America loads?
Do your best. Sometimes you are in a situation because of traffic, because of weather, and you may be pulling in right as the ceremony is happening, but you did your best. And the ceremony might happen and maybe you're getting there after the fact. It's not ideal, but we need you to operate safely and just do your best.
For a first time participating driver or fleet, what moment most often turns them into a lifelong supporter of Wreaths Across America?
What I tell people is this: if I had been able to create the retention that I have from drivers and companies when I was at a carrier, I would be out of business because I would have, become a consultant and made my money and probably be sitting drinking a drink with a little umbrella in it. But what keeps them coming back? I think their visit to Maine, how they're treated, how they're thanked, how we ensure that everyone that participates has a great experience. And you can feel it when you're coming to Maine and you've got 3 hot meals made for you. You've got somebody handing you a welcome, bag that's got a hoodie, it's got a can of bull snot, window cleaner historically. We've got Easy Claw that's giving you a great holder for your pigtails. We're giving you things that help you across and over the road. But also, it's just a small thank you. I can't thank you enough. Like, that bag is not nearly as much as I would like to spend time and thank every single driver.
Can you just go back to the bull snot? What is that?
Bull Snot is actually a brand. I know.
Okay.
Bull Snot is a brand. They are in pilots. They are in Tractor Supplies. But they make amazing window cleaner. Like, their aerosol, like, their cleaning products are great. It's made by a gentleman, Van Brown, who is a chemical engineer. But the best thing and my favorite thing about Van is just like you and me. You wouldn't know that he was a chemical engineer that had 27 degrees. I mean, if you were a chemical engineer, you probably wouldn't name your company Bull Snot. But he knew that it would stand out to a driver. And his products are outstanding. I mean, I even used them in my home. Like I said, I'm a huge endorser for the glass cleaner. Uh, so he's also got some hand cream that's outstanding. Um,
Wow.
if it makes it any better, my mother gave it to her Mahjong group for Christmas present. And I was like, I am 100% certain that they had so many questions about you. But they all loved it.
Well, I mean, if anything, drivers definitely need clean windshields, so this is a really good, uh, product placement. So that's really interesting. Thank you for clearing that up for me.
You're very welcome.
So let's move on now to remember and honor. How do carriers and drivers help Wreaths Across America fulfill the teach part of the mission?
You know, there are carriers that bring this into their communities. A lot of them do key passes along across the country. So it may take the load a little bit longer to get there, but they'll schedule the pickup appropriately. And then they'll have school kids out and the mission goes into there. We've got a K through 12 curriculum, and that K through 12 curriculum is in English and in Spanish. That was written by a retired teacher who was a Gold Star mother. She got the knock on her door at 10 a.m. on Christmas Day that no mother ever wants to get. And turned what I would call one of the most difficult situations in your life into something positive.
Tell us about the mobile education exhibit and how trucking supports Wreaths Across America in moving that message.
So we have a mobile education exhibit, and it is like a museum on wheels. So you see it historically at lots of trucking events, whether it's at a TCA event or an ATA event. You may see it at Iowa 80. I put it in strategic locations, and we make sure that every month as that travels the country, that we continue to make sure that 1 to 2 trucking companies are stopped at every single time. You know, I can historically pull from within their area to find out who is there and who might want it. And that is something that is great because it doesn't just give a driver that's coming in, you know, they want to see their dispatcher and they're like, oh, I wonder what that is. Um, but it truly gives the people in the office who are the people who make this happen. It gives them the opportunity to really shine and to truly understand the mission. There's no way going through that mission and watching 7 minutes worth of videos can't change your life.
Mm. And how can terminals, offices, or logistics teams support Wreaths Across America even if they don't operate trucks?
So even if you don't operate trucks, there's a way for you to participate. So all you've got to do is go to www.wreathsacrossamerica.org/trucking and fill out an information form. I get back with you very quickly and we can talk about what's a great way for you to do that. So maybe you're a supplier for this industry. One thing I can tell you from working at a carrier was that if I got one more person to send me some Cheryl's cookies, I clearly don't need them. But like, don't send me that. A $17 donation of a wreath is going to mean more to me and honor my employees
Mhm.
far more. None of us need any more cookies. If I get another, like, travel coffee mug, right? I'm like, if one comes in, one has to go out.
Mhm. Mhm. That's
So
great. Yeah, no, it's very true. It's very true. And as more women enter trucking, how are women drivers and women-led fleets engaging with Wreaths Across America?
absolutely. You see us at Women in Trucking. We partner a lot with them. We're right next to them at Matt's. So woman-led trucking, Esther Parsons for UPS has delivered the same load for 2 years and does a great job documenting and representing women in trucking. But there are so many females. And one of the drivers, that is on the convoy, Patrice Cook, is someone that has been out there. She served. And so one of the most rewarding things that I saw for her this year was in addition to, getting to drive and be part of the convoy, she actually got a quilt of valor. So she was like, "Miss Courtney, you didn't tell me." And I was like, "I couldn't tell you." And she was like, "I cried in public." And I'm like, "It happens to the best of us." But there are so many amazing stories out there, whether you served, whether we've got another driver that's out there that wanted to haul and take it to her husband's headstone to deliver there. And so, there's so many women as this continues to grow, we're seeing them participate more and more because people want to give back. They want to feel like they're doing something meaningful.
Right. And what is the biggest myth that the logistics industry gets wrong about Wreaths Across America?
This is not something that's easy. It takes a year for us to plan because we're looking at the last 3 years' numbers. We're looking at the forecast to see, we look at where our locations were, what's the heat map of where we're seeing them pop up, what loads are we going to need to add, and thinking that, hey, I can respond to Wreaths Across America and at the end of November or December. If you wait till that point, I've already given your load away. So I tell people like this is a year-long mission and we start talking in June. And we talk before then, but you'll see your primary load confirmations come out to you in June. So know that we aren't sitting around. We're spending time ensuring that we have carriers that can take these loads.
Earlier, you said that if we talked for 5 minutes, it would be too long because you're trying to recruit drivers. So, if you had 30 seconds to recruit a driver or a fleet to haul a Wreaths Across America load, what would you say?
I would tell you this is going to be the most important load you ever haul in your career and take time to talk to me.
I mean, that's less than 30 seconds. That was great.
That is way less than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But
So, what does, oh, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. Taking that time to talk to me is going to let me find why veterans are important to you, why our country is important to you.
Mm.
So getting that small piece of information is why they want to participate.
And what does keeping freight in motion mean to you when that freight represents honor and remembrance through Wreaths Across America?
It means everything to us. I mean, keeping freight in motion is probably the most important thing that we do, especially during crunch time, is we allow this industry to shine in the way that we should shine every single day. So giving that honor and respect back to your driver is something that's really important.
Courtney, thank you so much for sharing more about the mission of Wreaths Across America and the vital role that the transportation industry plays in honoring our nation's veterans. It was truly a pleasure to learn more about this.
Thank you so very much, Stephanie. I love getting to talk to you and enjoyed meeting with you.
And to learn more about Wreaths Across America or how to get involved, you can visit wreathsacrossamerica.org. And if you're interested in joining the MVT family and being part of meaningful work on and off the road, just visit m-v-t.com. I'm Stephanie Valle. Until next time, stay safe, stay sharp, and keep on trucking.